It's the 3rd of August 2018. I'm David Griffin. I'm here at Derbyshire County Cricket Club, and today I'm talking to
John Brown.
John, thank you very much for joining us as part of this heritage project. Many people, whether they're watching this in 2018 or in many years to come, will find you a familiar face, having been for the best part of the last 2 decades scoring for Derbyshire County Cricket Club. But before we talk about that, I'd like to take you back to your earliest connection with the game. What and where was your first contact with the game of cricket?
Well, it happened to be at Coventry Teachers Emergency Training College, where my father was a lecturer, and I was just short of my 11th birthday, and one of the students there, I think hoping to gain favour with my father, said would I like to come and watch him score cricket. I didn't even know what cricket was at that point. I went and sat with him, and I was fascinated by the scorebook, and went home and got a ruler out and drew up a score sheet of my own, and next time there was a match I went and sat with this same student and scored the match there.
And was there an interest in the actual game at that point, or was this, because you said you didn't know what cricket was,
no.
It was just the numbers and the process of...
It was just the fascination with the book itself.
Really?
Yeah.
So what about, how did that then extend subsequently to the game?
Well, we happened to move to London later that summer, beginning of August, and we moved to Lambeth, which was less than a mile from the Oval. It was also on the bus route to Lord's, so I was able to go to the Oval, and my very first day there was the second day of the last test in 1948, Bradman's last test.
Wow.
And I missed his innings by not having gone on the first day. So I never saw him actually on the field, although I can say I was present on the ground when he was.
So did you go by yourself, or
Yes.
Really? And at what age again?
11 and
Really?
a few months. And it was the sort of thing people did in those days. Yeah. And I got to the ground about 6:30, and the queue was already way round the blocks of flats outside. And I thought, oh, I'll never get in. But I did. And
how much did they charge you? Pennies, I would have thought.
9pence maybe, yeah. Old pence, that is. Yeah.
And so who else was playing for Australia at that time? Because it was obviously the known as the Invincibles, weren't they?
Yeah, Arthur Morris, Keith Miller, Ray Limwall. They don't all come easily.
Was Harvey playing?
Don Talon.
Was Harvey
I think Harvey came...
later?
Yes, of course, yes he did. He was on that one, because he'd helped Bradman to win the test at Leeds just before, I think. But as it happened, on that day, we didn't have seats, we only had stone steps, and I was too small when they stood up, because they had to stand in order to see over the people that were sitting on the grass. They actually sat on the grass in those days. So they had to stand up, and of course I couldn't stand any further. They tried balancing me on a pile of cushions, just the friendly people around me, and I gave up in the end because I wasn't seeing any cricket, so I went home at lunch and told my mum about it.
And were you at this stage playing any cricket?
No.
So when did you first sort of foray into playing the game?
I suppose I learnt a lot by watching the game and seeing how it should be played, and I started playing with a tennis ball in the playground at the school I went to, which was just by Tower Bridge, and I bowled and loved bowling leg breaks and watching it spin and batsmen looking silly at the other end, and of course I batted there as well. I didn't actually get into men's cricket until I was 16, and then, of course, there were no, if you weren't good enough to get in the school team, you didn't get cricket, because there were no youth teams being run by clubs in those days, and it was all done by schools. So yeah, I started at 16 and played for my old boys quite a bit, and developed reasonably quickly, and then went on, and I captained my old boys by 1963, which was after I'd been to a teacher training college and played cricket there, and I captained them. They played on Saturdays, a wandering side, and on Sundays I got into a team called Honour Oak, and I captained them on Sundays as well. So.
And was scoring still a fascination? Because of course, if you're playing, you can't score. But
that's right.
Were you still interested in that side?
I used, whenever I could, I would. I should have said it earlier, really, but in the through the early 50s, when I was still at school, every day of my summer holiday was spent going to cricket and scoring, but more now enjoying the cricket itself, because I was understanding the game so much better.
Was that first class cricket or
always first class?
Yeah.
Almost always first class, either the Oval or Lords, and just very occasionally on a Sunday looking for a club ground that I could go to. So I went up to Hampstead and I saw E.W. Swanton play there once.
Really?
And Roehampton was another one that was on the end of a bus route that I could go to, and I discovered was a place where I could go and watch cricket. I didn't always score, but I just went and enjoyed watching it.
And who were your favourite players of that era, your youth?
Well, obviously Compton, and mainly Compton and Edrich. I suppose the Surrey team, they were the team I supported at the time, and I was very lucky. Peter May, Alec Bedser, Laker and Locke, Peter Loader a little bit later came in. I wouldn't say he was a favourite player, but Dick Barton was the captain to start with. Stuart Surridge, he became a favourite as a very successful captain, partly as a way he bullied his players, I think. Laurie Fishlock at the beginning was a favourite opening batsman, his partner, David Fletcher.
Was there any sense, John, at that time, because obviously subsequently your involvement with Derbyshire County Cricket Club has been a lengthy one, but were you aware of, because presumably Surrey would play Derbyshire, were you aware of, because Derbyshire had quite a strong side themselves at that time, albeit they weren't good enough to win the championship, but they did have a strong...
Jackson and Tadwin and company. Derek Morgan a little later, I think. I'm not quite sure when he started.
1950, of course, he was a man
I would have seen him then, and it may well have been at Lords as well. But I have looked it up, and I didn't see Derbyshire very often in those days. It just didn't coincide with the days when I could get to it. If it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I was at school, then I was out of it. But yes, I was certainly aware of Derbyshire, but not in any great way. It was just nice being able to support Surrey and enjoy their almost inevitable success each year.
Yes. Yeah. You mentioned a few minutes ago about teacher training, so presumably as you concluded your schooling education, you then were looking at your long-term career.
Yeah, I had national service, so that was the thing that I didn't look much further ahead than national service because I knew I was going to get to 18 and then I would be off doing whatever the country wanted me to do.
Did you go into?
I went into the army, and because my dad had gone into the signals, he recommended that I should ask for the signals, and I finished up in the Royal Corps of Signals, which meant a year at Catterick.
Any cricket?
Not at Catterick, I don't think. Then I had a year in Tripoli, North Libya, and there was cricket because they had a team and they knew that I played and was interested.
What were the pitches like there? Dry, presumably.
They were certainly dry. We didn't play on grass.
Was it matting then?
They put matting. I actually organised a couple of games because I was so keen to be playing by getting matting put down in the middle of the barrack square.
Really?
And then I went round and said, we're going to have a game of cricket, would you like to play? And,
fielding on concrete.
Yes, it was. There was no diving. So there was that, and there was a representative team. I can't remember much about it. And I remember we played against the RAF Idris, which is another place out there, and we played against them, and they hammered us very badly. They were much stronger than the team that we'd got together. And of course the captain was a captain with pips on his shoulder. And
well, military cricket was very good at that time because there are stories of legion of people like Close and I think was it Illingworth? Certainly Close coming out of, or Truman coming out of their national service to play for England.
I saw Truman play in a match at Kingston-on-Thames, which was a festival game against the Australians, and in 53 that would have been, and I know Miller and De Courcy both got double hundreds when Truman was playing. So yeah, I certainly saw Truman play for England, and I was lucky enough to see that last Test match in 1953 when Brian Johnston said England had won the Ashes.
Oh, Compton.
When he swept it down to the gas holders, yeah.
You were there, were you?
I was there for every day.
What was the crowd on that last day? Because presumably there was no capacities like they have now. I think they just crammed in.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, they were able to sit on the grass in those days because health and safety didn't seem to matter so much.
Yeah. We were talking about my first test in '77, and we sat on the grass at Trent Bridge. Boycott's comeback test, Botham's first test, and those days they've gone forever, obviously. But it did allow people an opportunity, like you as a boy and like me as a boy, to go to a test match that you might not find a young boy would go to today, because he would need far more money and more organisation to do it.
Yes, I think I was at that same test. Was that the Randall run out? Yes, I was there for that.
Boycott stood there with his glove over his face. Quite amusing. So when you you come out of the army. What year are we talking now, John?
I went in the army in 55. Came out in 57.
Okay.
So it was the 2 years.
And that was then to go and do teacher training, presumably?
No, I didn't decide on that immediately. I did a couple of years in an insurance broker's because I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at that point. I didn't get such good exam results as I should have done because I read Wisdom more than I read Shakespeare.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
But so cricket presumably was a pastime, just something that would fit in around.
And by the time I came out, I was playing as much cricket as it was possible to play. Saturdays, Sundays, if there were cricket weeks going, and I would take my holidays in cricket weeks, or my old boys that went on tour to Devon in the second or third week in August every year, and I would go on that, and eventually I was helping to organise that and picking the teams for 7 days cricket on the trot. Wonderful stuff.
Absolutely.
Non-stop.
So where did teaching come into it?
Well, both my parents had been teachers, but it never really come into it. I suppose, that reminds me, for some reason I became a cub leader, and I enjoyed that, working with the youngsters at obviously primary age, wolf cubs, and I enjoyed that, and I thought, well, I could get on with my life working with children, and I went to my father and said, would it be all right if I give up the job I'm doing and go for a teacher's training college? And I think he was very pleased that I had decided to go that way. And as it happened, I got back to Coventry, which is where my cricket had started, right from the very beginning.
And what teaching did you have in mind? What sort
primary,
of...
primary teaching, and that was what I got to start with. And
that was in Coventry? No,
the actual teaching, when I qualified, it was at the end of a 3-year course, so now we're up to 1963. When I qualified, I came back, continued to live at home, and had found a school in Brixton.
Oh, right.
And near the Oval, which was quite nice.
Of course, yes.
And it was between Honour Oak, which played cricket on Thursday afternoons. They had a midweek team and played right through April to September with a match every Thursday. And I was able to arrange it so that I could go and join in a match that had started at 2 or 2:30, and I could get there for tea time and I could play in the second half.
And was there any cricket in the school, in the primary school?
There was, but it was only because I started it, and we had to go and play on park pitches. But I did run the cricket, and
that was quite a common thing, though, wasn't it? That it was people vocationally and volunteering generally to do that, and that's certainly not something that we see in schools today.
Anymore. No, because I think, was it Baker who came in and said you were only going to be paid for the actual days that you're meant to be teaching. You don't get anything extra for working outside. Well, I didn't expect it and didn't want it.
Yeah.
But, that was...
I think so many things, I think my own childhood in the 60s, that you think about drama and sport, were very much extracurricular.
Yeah.
And without those teachers giving that time up, then a lot of people would have missed out on lots of different things, really.
I got involved with running the South London team as well, so that was finding kids from all over the South London area, and I remember John Dew's son was one of them, and one of my own kids that I had been teaching, Raymond Lewington, who went on and played soccer for Chelsea, and I've got fond memories of scoring a goal on Match of the Day. Yeah. But I'd known him from the age of 7 through to 11, and so.
Well, as we know, obviously in the long term, we're not going to come on to it yet, but you ended up in Derbyshire because you became Derbyshire scorer. So what was the pathway from being a school teacher in Brixton, in the heart of London in the 60s, to moving further north? What was that pathway?
The head of the school where I came in Hatton, Derby, had played cricket at Honour Oak and knew me through that and knew that I was a teacher. Actually, his wife at the time was a teacher at my school, so that was how we got to know each other. And he decided that he would like me to come and help him set up the comprehensive school that he had got the headship of. Not sure that it's quite correct ethically, the way he did things, but he invited people to come, almost promising them that at the end of the interview they would be the ones that would be chosen.
That was really a massive leap from the south.
Yeah.
I mean, apart from your time in Tripoli and Catterick and a bit of time at Coventry, you've been largely Surrey, London-based young man, and now you're suddenly moving 150 miles.
Yes, I didn't say that my first 10 years were actually in Wiltshire.
Oh, right.
When my dad had a village school, and
but it was all in the south.
Yes, but when he came out of the wartime, he almost immediately got this job in Coventry that I told you about. So yes, it was a big move, but it was one that I felt it was time that I didn't live in the family home anymore.
And what year was this job?
This would have been 75,
right.
Easter 75, and I came up here, and after 3 months living in the head teacher's caravan in the backyard of the school, I got myself a house in Rolleston, and I'm still living there. So that was the way that worked.
Splendid. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it there because it's quite a convenient moment to pause, and then we'll pick up your life from 1975 onwards, which I think is about another 43 years we've got to discuss here. But for now, thank you, John.
Righto.